Today's special guest is Emrhys Cooper, who's been charming up the street in the past few months in the role of manipulative Rowan Cunliffe. He's kindly agreed to join me over Zoom today for a chat about the Institute story. But to be honest, I'm already getting the urge to upload my sins to him. Emrhys, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No
We can
worries.
do an up. Are you sure you're ready to join the Institute though?
I'm getting, and maybe by the end of this chat, you'll have me handing over 20 grand.
Good. Or 40, even better.
Look, I have to say, I've been loving this Institute story. It's been one of my favourites of the year. But before we get on to that, because there's loads that I want to ask you about that, let's talk a bit about you. How did you get into acting?
Well, my parents were both involved with kind of amateur dramatics, and my dad was in a Shakespeare company in Devon, where I grew up. So from a very young age, I was kind of going along to their productions, and then my sister got into dance. And then when I was about 5 or 6 years old, I was begging my mum to join in. So I joined the local dance class. And then it was like, yeah, the rest is history. I kind of just loved it. And as soon as I kind of got into acting and performing on stage, I knew really young that that was my calling. I was terrible at school, learning. I have learning disabilities and just bouncing off the walls with too much energy. So it was really, I'm really grateful for performing because it boosted my morale when I was struggling with other things. Yeah, from a very young age, just as soon as I got on stage, really, I was like, this is it.
Mm, sure. And you're looking at your IMDb page. You've been in some really big shows, I mean, over here and in the US and films as well. What made you want to come back over here and join the cast of Coronation Street?
Well, I grew up watching Coronation Street with my family, and I've always loved it. Out of all the soaps, it was my favorite. I love the mixture of humor and just the storylines they chose and how they handled them. And when this opportunity, I'd actually wanted to come back to the UK for a while because my mother unfortunately had a stroke and has been in a nursing home, and my dad's on his own. So I've kind of, for personal reasons, I wanted to come back to the UK to be closer to my family, but I didn't want to come back without an opportunity to
Yeah.
bring me here. So when the opportunity for Corrie arose, I jumped at it because it was the right role, especially, and I've always loved the show, and it wasn't too long of a commitment. So yeah, it's been a dream come true, and I've just enjoyed every minute of it.
How have you found being on set here compared to the productions that you're used to in the US?
It's been real. Everyone's been very friendly from the get-go, and funny and warm and loving and supportive. And that does happen in America too, but I'd say they're very professional. They are professional here, but they're almost a little sterile sometimes in America. And
Yeah.
it's yeah, I've enjoyed the banter. And yeah, just it's such a well-oiled ship. I mean, it's been going for so long. Everyone really trusts what they're doing and knows what they're doing. Sometimes when you have a new production, a new TV show, which I've been part of quite a few new shows, you've got a lot of ingredients that are kind of just figuring out the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
So figuring out what the show is, because Coronation Street really knows what it is. There's not as much friction and stress. I mean, obviously, there's going to be days where that happens. That's just production in general. But yeah, no, I was just blown away just by how supportive, on screen, the actors and the behind the scenes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was really lucky to work with Jane and Claire, and like a lot of the people I worked very closely with were just so friendly from the first day.
So what made the character of Rowan stand out for you in particular?
I mean, it's been reported a lot. I'm like the cult guy in the press, apparently, because my parents were in a cult, and that's been talked about a lot. That my parents were once in a cult, and so basically, yeah, I knew the Rowan type of character very well because not only were my parents in a cult, but they fell for like con men and holistic doctors, and several people entered my life and my home that were like Rowan. So I knew this type of character really well. And when the breakdown was sent to my agent, I was like, oh my God, it was one of those like that. I know this character. I want to play this role. And I actually find this subject, cults and self-help and very interesting. And I wrote and directed a movie a few years ago called The Shuru Retreat.
Yeah.
And in the process of writing that movie, I did a lot of research. So again, like 3 years of my life was spent, around this subject. So when the role, the audition came in, I didn't know I was going to book it, but I had a good understanding of what the character was. So, and with my life story, it just was like divine synchronicity, and thank God it worked out. Like it was funny because Corey didn't actually know any of my history with cults or my passion for the subject, so it just, just luckily worked out.
Do you enjoy playing villainous characters like Rowan?
I do, yeah. I don't know if this is scary, but it comes very easily to me. I played more villains in my career. Yeah, they're just fun. It's definitely fun accessing areas of my life and my personality that I get to be playful with, that I don't get to do in everyday life. And I tend to go lean into the villainous side of myself, which is fun to access on
It
screen.
seems like you're either playing villains or heartthrobs or charmers. So I guess Rowan is in that kind of ballpark, isn't it?
Yeah, what's funny is I actually find it harder to play the regular love interest, the kind of
Oh yeah.
like the generic nice guy. That's a stretch for me. That requires real acting. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't understand why, but yeah, Rowan, there's certain kind of roles that kind of just fit like a glove, and you can just put on that, that character, how they'll respond.
Mm.
And certain characters you have to do more work for. You have to really figure out who that character is. And I've done a lot of, research, and I continue to do research about, modern cults, what they look like, what's going on, because I think it's really important to play it truthfully. And
Yeah.
so I in playing Rowan, I have continued watching documentaries and reading and stuff, and it's something I enjoy.
Mm, mm. Has your dad kind of given you any advice based on his experiences as well?
So when it went down with my parents in the cult, it was actually 22 years ago. So I'd left home, and they came, whenever I spoke to them, they were like giddy with excitement about this new thing they were part of. And like, I was really happy for them. My mum was losing weight. And at first it was like, it seemed like this amazing blessing, and they were just so happy. And I was really supportive of it.
Mm.
And gradually, the deeper they got into it and the higher the levels up, it got worse and worse. And I'd left home, so I wasn't not close to my parents, but I think when they left the cult, they were quite embarrassed about what happened. So we never really discussed it. They just kind of brushed it off. And then they were currently living in London when they were in the institute. I can't believe I'm saying that. They were living in London, and once they got out, they returned to Devon. But yeah, I have consulted with my father about his experience and some of the parallels, and there's definitely a few. Yeah, it's actually brought us kind of closer together, which is beautiful, because I've lived in America for 15 plus years, so it's nice to return to the UK and have something that we can talk about. And he enjoys, giving me fun stories and anecdotes.
So what would you say is the main aim of the Altavalent Institute and where do you see Rowan fitting into the chain of command there? I mean, is he pretty near the top, or do you think the organization goes a lot deeper than we've been led to believe on screen?
He's trying to reach for the top. I mean, we've met Willow on screen, and I think there's quite a lot of pressure on him to make certain numbers. And he's not quite there yet. That's how I imagine it. He's not quite, and he needs to get the money to get himself to the next level. He's very ambitious. But yeah, I don't think he's quite at the top, but I'd say he's very close, and he wants to be there.
Yeah, it was interesting what you said about Willow, because we saw her on the Zoom call in that cafe scene, and but some people have said online that they reckon she's an AI, a bit like the AI Ollie, but she is meant to be real, isn't she? Just maybe someone who sends Rowan off to do her dirty work rather than getting out there herself.
I I read that about the AI. I mean, so Rowan, in his backstory, was in a lot of trouble, and the Institute saved him. And I think that, you can develop savior complexes, and I think that Willow really did transform his life. So he's kind of indebted to her, and he wants to prove himself to her. So that's why he's you know, and I don't necessarily think he's had huge amounts of success. He portrays to the audience and to everyone around that it's all
Yeah.
this facade, this avatar he's created. But I think he still really needs to prove himself to Willow, to the Institute, and himself. You know, I don't think he's quite a success. He's not the success story he portrays himself to be.
Yeah, I see. I see. Speaking of Willow, some people have also spotted the tree connection in Rowan and Willow's name. Now we know that Rowan is an alias as well. So, what tree name do you think would suit Leanne?
A good female tree name. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
she can be a bit prickly sometimes, so like Holly maybe, or
I haven't actually thought about that, but I like the analogy for sure. Yeah,
yeah,
should we go for Holly?
yeah. Let's go with that. I was talking earlier as well about that cafe scene that was filmed in the Coronation Street Experience cafe, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, 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 it was.
Yeah. Is that supposed to be? I don't know how much they told you. Is that like supposed to be part of the Institute building? I mean, is there like a base of the Institute, or is it more kind of going around and setting up in hotels around the place?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the goal for Rowan is to open an institute himself, right? And
Yeah.
and head that up. But right now it's a lot of smoke and mirrors and meetings in random places because I don't think he has a base.
Hmm.
Uh, and we haven't actually established um, you know, where his offices are because I think he's often on the move.
Hmm.
And yeah, that one where they had the unspecific cafe, I don't think that is the Institute. No.
I just had like little crystal models in the middle of the table, and I wondered whether that tied into the wellness and all that kind of stuff.
Maybe he bought the crystals himself.
Maybe. So we were talking about the levels earlier. Has Rowan got a level as far as you know? Because we know I think Leanne is what 6 at the moment. We might be going up to 8 soon. Has Rowan got a level?
I would say it's a bit like Scientology. I don't know if you're familiar with Scientology. I think
Yeah.
he's right. The last one, well, the second to last. I think he's got one more level to go. Um, so which we say he's on a 10. Maybe he needs to get to a 12. I don't know. If she's on an 8 right now.
Yeah, I think so. So
I
she's catching up quite fast then.
think
She's a
there's
quick
yeah,
learner.
I think there's like never ending levels right now, but yeah, she's jumping some levels, isn't she? Um, I don't think he's quite at the final level, but I think he's very close.
Hmm. It's one of the things that kind of just struck me through watching this storyline is all this techno jargon, like leveling and malware sessions and reality coding. Has it been challenging at all to film these scenes, design kind of delivering this lingo in a serious way? Because I mean, there's got to be a bit of tongue in cheek from the copywriters there, hasn't there?
Yeah, that's one thing I did struggle a little bit because it's not conversational.
No.
It's as Toya said, it's a bit of a word salad. So making it seem natural and learning it so it didn't seem too I had to understand with what I was saying so the audience could understand what I was saying. That yeah, it was quite some of the dialogue and speeches weren't the easiest to memorize just because that's not how I speak, and I don't think anyone speaks like that.
No.
Um, but it was also a good challenge. I actually think the Corey writers did a really good job.
Yeah, I agree. I
And
agree.
I actually had messages from I've had messages from people that were in cults. Like so I had a message from a lady, a former member of Scientology, who said it was like she was living in California but watching Coronation Street. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I'm really glad that it's resonated and rung true. So, and
Hmm.
like if you boil a lot of these cults down, a lot of it's the same kind of jargon,
Yeah.
it's very similar in a
Hmm.
different kind of delivery. So
Hmm. I think thinking back to the story so far, it's been Leanne's upload session and the malware sessions which have stood out to me so much. I loved all that stuff. And it gave Jane Danson the chance to give some really emotional performances. What's it been like working so closely with her?
it's been amazing. Jane is such a phenomenal actress and a person, and she's so giving and so kind. Yeah, I've loved every minute working with her, and she gives so much that it makes it so much easier to act because she's so there and she works really, really hard. and is fun. Like we have like banter, or, when we're not, in these intense scenes, we're having a laugh, and she's just been so there for me. It has been a lot. I moved to America, from America to Manchester on my own, without my husband, without any friends, and she was really supportive, and it's been a joy the whole time with her. And I've learned a lot. I've just really watched her, just how professional she is, how she treats people, so kind, and everyone loves her. So I'm really lucky that I got to work with her so closely.
Yeah, that's lovely to hear. Do you think there's something about Leanne as a character that makes her particularly susceptible to con men like Rowan, or because usually you think, oh, she's quite a street smart character, or is it just kind of a case of it could happen to anyone?
I mean, I do think it could happen to anyone, because I think we've all gone through things, and yeah, I think with the trauma that she's gone through a lot. That character's gone through a lot.
Yeah,
We've heard it, and I think it's really cool to you know, in those sessions, in the malware session, and for her to relive those things, and her acting was sensational.
yeah,
I like that they chose Leanne to go on, have this adventure, this storyline, because it wasn't what we would expect. And I think we're living in a very strange time with coming post-COVID, a lot more people online, a lot of people looking for deeper meaning. And I know people that have gone down a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories that are very intelligent people.
mm,
So I think it's great they chose a character that wouldn't normally fall, you wouldn't say Leanne would fall for something like this. But look, every human being wants to change and grow, and there are times where we're more vulnerable and susceptible to these types of con men. I think cults just look different now than they did 30 years ago. Like, I mean, we have this idea of what a cult looks like with these guys in white tunics running around,
yeah,
and that's not what they are now. You have like dance cults on TikTok. You have, let's not talk about America, but you have political cults.
yeah,
You have all sorts of cults, and disinformation being spread like wildfire on social media. Life can be a cult. If you're down a rabbit hole and you're alienated from your family, you're believing all these lies and propaganda that's making you fearful of governments and mistrusting the national health system.
mm,
Guess what? You're in your own cult. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Listening to certain YouTubers. There's a lot of these cult leaders are now on YouTube that have huge followings. So I think it's a really scary time with disinformation,
mm,
because so many people, and I'm just so flabbergasted at people I know that are resharing lies and inaccurate information without doing any research,
yeah,
and it's becoming the norm, and no one even apologizes. It's like,
mm,
where's common decency? And so I'm giving you a long-winded answer here, but I think it's important to really dissect the truth, because right now, with AI things being created, you sometimes don't even know if that person's even
no,
speaking those
yeah,
things. You know what I
exactly.
mean? So it's really important to kind of like look at the facts and not look at one news channel. I try and read a bunch of different opinions. So I'm like, I can have an informed opinion of my own based on not just living in an echo chamber.
Mm. That's really interesting what you've been saying about how broad a definition a cult can have. Because when the storyline I first heard about it, I immediately was cast back to the Coronation Street cult story in the 90s, which Leanne was also involved in, trying to rescue a friend from that. Do you know if there's been any behind the scenes talk of the similarities between those two? Because I've been crossing my fingers for a reference to that particular story.
Yeah, I was told there was that storyline. I missed that storyline when it was on
Mm.
originally, but I we haven't really talked about it that much, and we're looking forward. I think it's like there's obviously a bunch of different writers now,
Yeah.
but I would like to see. I love watching classic Corrie. It's like a guilty pleasure of mine. I love watching classic Corrie, so I would love to see. I would love to see that storyline. I mean, Corey handles things so well. Like, I mean, it's just I'm getting so many amazing messages from people that have been affected by cults saying that we're doing a good job. So that's what
Mm,
means the
mm.
most to me.
Yeah, and I'm finding it really interesting now how the storyline's moving towards Amy, who she's another character who you might initially think might see through the Institute's charms. Do you think Rowan sees her as a valuable asset to the Institute, or is he just looking to fleece her as well?
Well, I'd like to think that he has some good intentions. I think Rowan has an interesting duality of actually wanting to help people,
Mm,
but at the same time, he's taking advantage and he wants to help himself. So it's, life is not black and white, and he's not a black and white villain. I think there is, Leanne has had some breakthroughs. Some of the work he's doing does make sense. That's what's really hard for her to kind of like. There have been red flags, but she's growing a lot too, and healing. So I think he does believe in what he's preaching, but there's this other side of him that he can't, control, which is the ambition, and I do think he sees potential in Amy because she's lost direction. She needs some of his skills that
mm,
he wants to impart on her, but at the same time, he knows she has money, and that is the thing that he really needs. I
yeah.
mean, what is his intentions? Yeah, he wants to help her, but he also needs to help himself, and that's the main thing.
Mm. It is interesting thinking about the character of Rowan because we know that he had a criminal past in his other life, and at some point he was taken in by the Institute as well. And at some point he went from being a victim of the Institute to being, the one doing these criminal acts.
I mean, I think that he was in a lot of trouble in his 20s, in and out of prison. I mean, drugs, I think all sorts of things went on. And I do think that the Institute saved his life. So he really believes in the Institute.
Mm.
Yeah, um, he might have ulterior motives with some of these people, but I do think, I'd like to think he's got some good in him. We'll have a bit of a redemption storyline one day. Like I think he's a little brainwashed by it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also enjoyed a few. I mean, you've not had scenes with a really wide range of other characters in the street, but I've enjoyed seeing the little interactions he's had with some of the other residents of the street. Like, do you remember the scene where with George when he came in and he was having a go moan about your motorbike, and by the end of the scene, you've got him around your finger. That was great.
I love that. Yeah, it was really great working with Tony. He's got amazing. He's a comic genius, and it was a
Mm.
really fun scene. I love that scene. Yeah. No, I've enjoyed working with the other all the actors I've worked with have been great, and there are a few more. There are a few more coming up that we haven't seen me
Oh,
interact.
really?
Yeah.
See, I haven't really given too much thought into theories, but Ken did just win 50 grand on the premium bonds last week, so maybe he needs to be your next target.
Yeah, I'm not saying targets, but Rowan does have some interactions with some other characters.
Yeah. Okay.
So that would be a fun target.
Yeah, that would be taking down Ken Barlow. So at this stage, what would you say is stopping Rowan sharing the video or the pictures, sorry, of Nick and Toya together? Because that's the blackmail he's been holding on to for a little while, isn't it?
Yeah, well, in last week's episode with Nick, basically they've got him. They've actually got him in the corner. So because Rowan has sent that message to Toya, and then he left the voicemail with Nick demanding the money, they have enough evidence that he's been blackmailing them to get him. So he's actually now in a situation where he knows he's got the information that he can kind of keep playing with Nick on, but he knows that if he keeps pushing it, they could report him into the police.
Mm.
He's
Yeah.
kind of in a situation. He's been kind of yeah, he's not been caught completely, but it's very close.
Yeah, it
It's
feels like he's been
like a
bitten off
game
a
of
little bit more
chess.
than he can chew with those two, hasn't he? Toya's been the thorn in his side right from the start.
Yeah, it's like a game of chess, and but he believes he can win, so it's definitely not quite over yet.
Yeah, I enjoyed the scene as well a couple of weeks ago. Speaking of Nick, when you're in the hotel and he comes in and punches you out in the face, and Debbie's there. Was it quite fun doing a bit of a physical scene?
It was great, yeah. Ben is actually, I think he's like a purple belt in jiu-jitsu,
Really,
so
I didn't know that.
yeah, no, he's really like a serious, but like he's very, I mean, it was really fun and professional. Obviously, we had a stunt guy that, everything. I enjoy that kind of stuff, and we had a laugh. And I liked it when Jack called me Frosted Tips. Was it Frosted Tips? Yeah, like we were cracking up we were cracking up because the line was just his delivery was so funny, and I do have frosted tips. I'd like to say they're real, but you know, they're as real as Rowan's name. So
I thought it was funny in that scene where Debbie's like, "Don't bleed on my upholstery. I've just had it done."
Sue's brilliant. Comic timing.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's the thing with this story as well. I mean, would you say that it's mostly a raising awareness of this type of group story, or is it more of a classic, just kind of soapy, silly story, or a good mixture of both, would you say?
I think it's very in the zeitgeist right now as far as cults. So I think Corrie is smart to have this storyline because you know if you look on Netflix, if you look on the news, I mean it's happening and it's
Mm,
happening much more than people realize. There's like literally a cult in every town in the UK. You know what I mean? We think it's just like the big few, like Scientology. What's the other one? Lighthouse.
mm.
But yeah, and as I said before, they look different how they did before. So I think it's smart because we are more susceptible um, to fall for them. But yeah, it's also really fun. I think it's been great, soapy, like over the top. I love playing Rowan and this villain, and I hope the audience are enjoying the ride too because we're having a great time making it.
Yeah, what sort of reaction have you got from viewers that you've encountered since the story's been going?
I've been heckled at quite a few times. Leave Leanne alone. You know, you've got to stop being so nasty to that Leanne. And then I've been called a few names, um, which I love. I love that.
Any
But
old ladies hit you with a handbag? That's a good one.
I haven't had that yet. But I would laugh if that happened. I love it. But you know, most of them have been really supportive and very complimentary, and they have a laugh. I have a laugh with people, and it'll be interesting because I'm about to go on stage to do pantomime, and I was
Mhm.
like, "Am I going to get booed?"
I think you're gonna have to be booed. I think, that's what happens when soap villains go into panto. You gotta.
Yeah, I bet I'm playing Prince Charming, so hopefully they're going to buy me in that role. I don't know. We'll see. I'll have to change the character. Again, this is going to be a real stretch for me playing Prince Charming.
Because I mean, obviously, Rowan has, for the fact that you're doing the panto proves it, got a fairly short street life on the street. Would you be interested in him like seeing the light, as it were, breaking free of the institute, or do you think it's going to be better if soap justice catches up to him in the end?
Well, I think we're going to see a bit of a comeuppance or some soap justice. I actually don't know what the end for Rowan is. I have no idea, which is kind of exciting. But I have really enjoyed working on the show, and I really like everyone at Coronation Street, and I enjoy playing Rowan. And if the opportunity arose to continue playing him and maybe have redemption or who knows, maybe a love
Hmm,
interest. I'd quite like to have like some, maybe he needs a little love interest. Maybe love can save the day. Love
maybe.
can heal his yeah, mischief. I don't know, but I would be game to come back.
You,
Um
you you don't
uh,
want him to end up 6 feet under, knocked over by a car, or you want him to stay alive at least at the end of the story.
I'd like him to. He's not, I don't think he's quite done yet.
Hmm. And who do you think then would be the best character to take him down? Leanne finally seeing what he's really like, or do you think that Toya or Nick need to do that?
I know who is going to take him down. I don't know
Ah,
how
okay.
he's going to be taken down, and I can't really say that yet.
Sure.
But yeah, no, someone is gonna take him down, and it's the right person. I just don't know what happens after that, if you know what I
Sure,
mean.
sure.
I
Well,
can't.
I mean,
I actually can't. I don't know, so I can't even say.
yeah. I can't wait to see it. Like I said at the beginning, I have loved this story. It has been really interesting and made me think about cults in a different way. But it has been very fun seeing you kind of smarming your way in, Toya and you button heads all the time. It's been brilliant. So I am looking forward to seeing what happens to Road at the end.
Oh, good. Well, me too. I can't wait. Well, I think it's. I'm hoping it'll be dramatic. Yeah,
Yes, I'm sure
something,
it will
something,
be.
something spicy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, thank you for your kind words and having me on the pod, and I really appreciate your support, and I'm glad. I love this character and the role. It's been amazing to play.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's been brilliant getting under your skin and finding a little bit about what it's been like playing Rowan.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Well, I'll let you get back on with your day then. See you then.
See ya.
Bye bye.